Let's talk about Citizen Sleeper. And then we're going to take a look at two Citizen Sleeper games, one of them being Cycles of the Eye by Lost in Cult, or as the company is sometimes known to me, Lost in Delivery. And then we're going to look at Spindlejack, which is a short brochure game by Gareth Damian Martin, who is the actual creator of Citizen Sleeper. And then we're going to talk about why the ideal Citizen Sleeper tabletop role playing game exists somewhere between these two. Color on Spindlejack added by me. All right. So, Citizen Sleeper is a tabletop inspired narrative sci fi role playing game. And it's developed by a company called Jump Over the Age, who is, or I guess, started by Gareth Damian Martin. And in this, you play as a sleeper, very cyberpunk inspired. It's very Blade Runner influenced. And basically, you are a human consciousness that is replicated from some other, quote, actual human, but you're inhabiting a synthetic body. And this body is owned by a mega corporation that I think is called Megacorp. Maybe I'm confusing that. The first game takes place in a space station that is, one of these sort of space station environments like you see in The Expanse that's become its own society. It's called Erlin's Eye, and it's sort of now this broke down place of anarchy that is just barely on the edge of civilization. The tabletop role playing mechanics fit the game, the setting, everything perfectly. Each in game day, a cycle, you roll a number of six-sided dice. At the start of the game, this is 6 dice, or I guess 5. Yeah, 5. And this will be less dice based on your condition. So it's like your condition will determine how many of these dice you have daily, and you assign these dice to actions on the station. So you can use them to work, explore, hack, but also to have conversations, to do favors for people. Usually higher rolls yield better outcomes, but there's this really cool subsystem where sometimes you need the higher dice to be more effective, and then some things are like specificity based. So it'll be like, rather than saying, "Oh, you have to roll over this number, good luck," it'll say, "In order to access this task or this thing, you have to have one die that says 3 on it," which I think is really cool and helps you make use of some of the lower rolls. Anyways, the game is a series of clocks and timers, and it does a good job obfuscating those in some ways and making them very apparent in others. These clocks, like Blades in the Dark, they are time-based or progress-based developments, and some of them are very specific, like you have to get this many successful dice rolls in order to repair this ship core. Whereas other ones are like, you have to get this much money before this person arrives, and the clock will advance each day. Or it'll be more abstract, like you have to come and hang out at this space bar until you are known there and have some sort of reputation. And every time you go there and buy a drink, you get 2 advances in the clock, and talk to somebody, you get 1, etc. And then there's also resource management. There's these different resources. We talked about your overall condition, energy, your money or your cryo, time, and also relationships. And this is, I would say is like the core um, dilemma of the game is that you are balancing surviving and connecting. And so there is a strategic decision making component to the game. I think when a lot of people encounter the game the first time, they go, well, how is this a game? I'm just like reading stuff. And I know it can feel that way. And if you, I won't say that like everybody will love this game, but I will say if you've tried this game for 5 minutes, go ahead and try it for 10. Because I think what you'll see is over time, it's a game of risk and reward about where to dedicate resources, where to invest things. All right. And so, throughout the game, and I won't spoil too much, but um, there is several different meta objectives. You can work with hackers that are trying to liberate these entrapped digital life forms. You can help the refugees on the ship find safety. You can work for a ship crew. You can you could have a garden of mushrooms, and then there's like different cooperatives that want you to join, and so it does. Um, there's multiple endings to it, multiple pathways that you could do. No two playthroughs of the game are the same, and I would say also that there is this reactivity or see, I struggle with this word in the last video I made, but basically the decisions you make matter. That's what a lot of people feel playing through this game. And I think also it's important to say, like exactly what a sleeper is. So you are this digital human consciousness, like I said, you're in an artificial body, and you're manufactured and owned by this metacorp. Here's a picture of one right here, would be an example, and you can upgrade your skills and stuff like that. And um, your mind is a copy. It's emulated, and it's usually a labor contract. And so essentially, it has a little bit of, if you've seen Severance, that brings up important questions about like what responsibilities do we have over our consciousness. Can we replicate a consciousness and then treat it as if it does not feel or does not matter? What does it mean if even in a world where like having a person as legal property would be appalling, are we going toward a world where having a copy of a person can still be property? Um, and also, much like Blade Runner, these you're living in this ersatz body with a built-in decay protocol, so your timeline is limited. And so the whole game you're trying to evade the corpos retrieving you because you're stolen property to them, but you're also trying to maintain your decaying body. So you need like special serums, or else you're going to just succumb to meaningful, or what is it, intentional obsolescence. But also, you have to build something meaningful because you have no claim on anything. You have no legal claim, social claim, biological claim. Hell, some people would say you don't even own yourself. You're not your person that you represent. And so the philosophical implications of this is like, are you what does it mean to have personhood? If you're a mind without a legal body, are you a person? Um, what does it mean to have memory that's not your own? Um, I think this is general comment, maybe not intentional, but this is how I see it, as a commentary on the alienation of self that happens in our world, feeling like our lives are something distant and intangible and controlled and owned by everyone but us. And then this synthetic precarity, your body is chemically unstable, it glitches, everything's tenuous. So interestingly though, I mean, um, I can't say I've read everything on this, but the one thing that really is powerful to me about this game is that it is like every other game, which is like life, right? Like a game should be a heightened metaphor, a heightened, high intensity, high urgency, high viscosity metaphor for life. And so you are this person that just blips into a body, and you are owned by these mega corporations who sort of stake claims on you and violate your consciousness all the time and tell you what to do and tell you what your limits are, and who decided they decided. And if you got a problem with that, well, they're very good friends with the people who can hurt you. And on top of that, this idea of precarity, oh, I only have this short time to live. Mm-hmm. Oh, my body's glitching. Like things are going wrong. Mm-hmm. Hey, if I don't get these certain substances, I'm going to die. But at the same time, if I focus my whole time on getting substances that sustain me, what does my life mean? Mm-hmm. Hey, I really need this cryo to make things happen for myself. And I should be dedicating my whole time to that. But also, there are these people, and I feel electrochemical things towards them. And gee, I should work, but I also kind of want to know people and love people and be with people. Mm-hmm. Right? And so that's what I think Citizen Sleeper does really well, is it allows you to reach some catharsis about what you already know. We already know that this whole situation that we're in, being bloomed out of a woman, and all of a sudden we're like, what is all this, right? And then, oh, it's so dangerous. Everything hurts so much. Everything's so cold. Everyone's so mean. Everything's so terrible. Oh, and I've got to make these decisions. I'm not ready to make these decisions. Nobody taught me how to make these decisions, right? And then before you know it, you're dead. Yeah. But along the way, there's a lot of dice to be rolled, a lot of clocks to be advanced, a lot of cryo to be won, and a lot of people to make as companions, which in game 2, I see that as one of the biggest innovations in the second one. It came out recently, Starward Vector. I was very afraid of this second one because you see here, like bottom right and left, you have Bliss and Femi, and these are companions that you could have with you, and they have like 2 dice each, and so you can dedicate it to that. You're also moving from place to place in that game, and whereas I really liked like opening up new parts of Erland's Eye in the first one, but it's cool, it's good. I mean, I even think it's as good, definitely better, possibly, because the first one, it's you know, well, it's all the things I said, but the second one adds this idea of evasion and escape and survival, and I'm certain that that is a thought that all of us have had, that I think is a new civilizational thought. That's a big statement. Well, let me say this. Um, you know how you'll read something about a person that kind of escapes to a place to where they will be more accepted? You know, I mean, if you're a person who is not part of the majority and you are not safe in a place, if you're lucky enough, right? If you have the means, the connections, the talent, like, you know, jazz players would go to France. Well, you know, you have to be a pretty good jazz player to have people pay for you to come to France in 1891. And it's like, once you're there, you can live a relatively normal life, right? But the question I think more and more that people have as the world becomes this globally interconnected, instantaneous transportation, you know, your body can be in one place, your mind can be in another, is, well, that's great, we're all interconnected, but if I want to escape somewhere, where do I go? If I don't like what's happening here, yeah, I get everyone else likes it, but if I don't like it, what's happening here, where can I go? And of course, this has become like a thing that now is only in the purview of the sort of ultra rich to be like, if you're Peter Thiel, let's seastead. I don't think he wants to do seasteading anymore. Or like Musk is like, let's go to Mars. This is the escape fantasy, right? And for more about this, and to think about it critically, and I have no opinion on it because neither will you. If you read enough Ursula Le Guin, you'll be like, oh yeah, there's no escape from anything because there's no escaping from just being alive. Yeah. All right. Anyways, I think I went too far with that, but yeah. So that's Citizen Sleeper. So now we're gonna talk about Cycles of the Eye, and I did make a video about this. If you want to go more in depth in this, but I'll just do a recap of it. Just really quick, I'm going to take the dust jackets off these books. I think they're really beautiful, really nice, but they're unwieldy to me. So get a nice look at them. There's the inside, very cool. Do they say anything on any part of them? I don't know. No, I guess not. It's not like the airport or Walmart books where it's like Tom Tobin is a father of 3 beautiful dogs, and he formerly served as cabbage. All right, so a note on the tarot cards. You have minor arcana and major arcana as you would in any tarot deck. The minor arcana are very minimalist, and this would be cups, I guess wands, this would be pentacles, and this would be swords. But for this, it is intuit, engineer, endure, and interface, which are like the stat divisions within the actual game. And then you have the court cards for these, the page, knight, queen, and king for all of these. So together, these are the minor arcana. We're going to shuffle these up. And you can see on each of them is also like oracle inputs. And depending on what direction they emerge when you deal them out, will be different things. And these conform roughly well to some interpretation of that actual tarot card. It's, this to me is like, uh, I worry about a world where this is like the standard tarot deck because there's nothing to interpret on here. I mean, there's just the base binaric symbolism. The spread of particles in the back is not even unique, and so this is pretty much a tarot reference list that is divided into cards. Then you have the major arcana. That go from 0 to 21, and these feature characters from the game. And again, these roughly conform to an interpretation of those cards. Some of them are really, really spot on, and some of them not so much. Now, I think this is, I don't blame them for either of these things in terms of like the cards corresponding directly to what the tarot means. Number one, because who am I to say what each tarot card means? It's just when you've read like enough tarot guides, this is what this card generally, the thrust of it. But I don't blame them because they're trying to do something that I think is inherent in all video game adapted to TTRPG games, which is like you're trying to use the divisions and categories of the game to create cognates within this other structure. Citizen Sleeper was not designed originally to fill a tarot deck. And so I think, given that they wanted it to reflect that, I think they did a nice job. In terms of the major arcana, these are going to be kept separate from the minor arcana, and then you'll also have a deck of adversaries, which are the adversaries, generally speaking, from the first game, and you keep those separate as well. Now, there is a variant of the game that I actually think is better called Hunt Mode, which involves more of a pursuit dynamic. But I'm just going to show you basically how to set up the game, just so you get an idea of like how the gameplay loop goes. But I'm going to shuffle these up and these as well. I did look up a few reviews, and well, first of all, I found something called Existential Magazine that did have a pretty good comparison of condition to our own personal needs versus societal expectations, etc. So that's just to say I didn't create that metaphor. But then also another one called Gamers with Glasses has a really good comparison of like this is a sci-fi version of a company town where you have like script and you can shop at the company store and it's basically a really bottom heavy pyramid scheme. Anyways, what I have here are drive decks, and the way that I constructed these is after shuffling the major and minor Arcana cards as well as the adversary decks. I put, I made stacks with 4 minor Arcana and 2 major Arcana, and so total 6 major Arcana, and 1 of them came from the adversary deck. So what we have here are 3 piles of 6 cards. Each of them have 2 minor Arcana, 2 major Arcana, 6 total, and 1 of the piles has an adversary card. I don't know which one in it. All right. And so this is what the game board will look like. And so right now we have these drive decks up top. And when we are going through these, we flip the top one face up so that we can see and sort of like construct a storyline out of it. Wow. Okay. Well, that makes sense. They're mostly minor Arcana. And then we're just going to, I have next to me off camera the deck of major Arcana and minor Arcana, and those are going to be put into use, but the adversary cards for now are sort of off to the side. All right, and then with the these being the drive decks, based on the result of these cards, we are going to now add challenge decks that correspond categorically to how many of challenge cards we should put below it. So if it's an ace, which we don't have, you'd put 1 card in the pile here. 2 to 5 is 2, 6 to 10 is 3, and if it's a face card or a major Arcana, we put 4. So this one is 6, so that means 6 to 10 is 3 cards, and then 10, another one with 3 cards, and then the last one is a 5, and so we're just going to put 2 cards, and these are our challenge decks. And we're going to flip the top of each pile face up. Now, again, the orientation of these cards matters, and so when I shuffled, one of the reasons I did it off camera was because I really gave it a throwing shuffle. I just smashed these cards all around. But this is basically we want to keep them in that orientation because this will give us a different result. I also want to note that the reason why the major Arcana deck will keep around, the minor Arcana deck is going to be our draw pile. The adversaries, they won't come back until my next game because it's like per playthrough you have 1 adversary in the base game. Now, something a little frustrating to me about Lawson Cult, and I'll just be candid with this, is they are a boutique company that creates art books and sells like musical adaptations and sometimes these tabletop role-playing games. And they are, on one hand, an indie company that creates like really beautiful things out of these other beautiful things. But number one, their production and shipping has, in my experience and the experience of others I've spoken to, it's very poor. Their communication's very poor, in my experience and others who have experienced it. And once they're done with the campaign, it appears as though they just don't care. Like, for instance, I would really, really am a top fan of Citizen Sleeper, and I would really love a set of Citizen Sleeper dice, especially because the dice, which have this sort of honeycomb design, are really beautiful, and I love just the entire visual experience of those dice. They're very recognizable in the game. I've spent a long time playing the game, and they're sold out. They've been sold out. They were sold out almost immediately, and I don't every single Citizen Sleeper item on that site is sold out. It's gone. And so I I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope these things are available again, but it doesn't seem like anything has happened. They're just on to the next campaign. It's also, it's like, look, I love to support smaller independent companies because reasons, but at the same time, sometimes you have a small independent company that you could tell wouldn't mind if it was not small. You know what I mean? Anyway, so I think that some of the Free League dice are a good replacement for this. If you want like the visual pips thing, you could use Vazen. But I think in terms of visual kind of, I don't know, works well is the Tales from the Loop dice are pretty good. I'm going to select a few here. The core colors of the Citizen Sleeper game are like pink and yellow and black. And so maybe green. And so I'll take a look and get some help with my color locator to pick out a set here. We need 10, by the way. Well, technically 11. 10 dice, 10, I don't know how I said 10 dice, 10 dice, and one for a fortune die. And if anyone from Lost in Cult should ever watch this video, which I doubt they will, but if they do, instead of feeling butthurt, maybe just like take the note, just like take the, and I know that the urge is probably, you don't understand production. I know that there's more to it, that my experience is just sort of the consumer, right? I don't really get what, I understand that, but I also understand that other companies, they respond to emails and they ship things in a reasonable time frame that doesn't just keep you utterly in the dark. All right? So just a note. Otherwise, really beautiful stuff. This is one of the hardest decisions I've ever had to make. It wouldn't be hard if these Tales from the Loop dice were evenly... Or wait, these aren't Tales from the Loop. Electric State. If they were evenly distributed, 5 and 5, it'd be a done deal. But we got 6 and 4, and that doesn't work because I need 2 types of dice. So obviously these guys, because when you roll a 1, you just throw it out unless you roll more than 1, which we'll talk about. So 5 of those guys. I definitely like what Vazen's showing me here, except this is very clearly, And then Alien is great. It's just on these, this doesn't seem to fit. If I keep thinking of a face hugger. Mutant Year Zero, these are steady. These are solid as a rock right here, but radioactivity, fallout. So I think what we got to do is we'll do 5 Alien of the base dice because I believe, the 1 does not have a face hugger, and this is fine. And then for the fortune die, I think we're going to use a Vazen because, fortune, it is... I'm so sorry about all of this. I didn't need to show this on camera. Let's get back to the game. When dice doesn't meet my expectations, and my expectation is simple, it should make my life easier rather than harder. When I want something special, but dice just isn't answering the call, well, I reach for my planetary gemstone set from Dice Nest. This set is a stunning collectible that represents the 8 planets of the solar system. And it is beautiful, and the price is very affordable. But that would be enough for me. But Dice Nest, they always take it a step further because you see, each gemstone is carefully selected not only to match the color, but also the characteristics of the corresponding planet. For instance, you have Mercury here is white crystal, and it's a semi-transparent white stone symbolizing the intense heat and brightness of Mercury. And then Venus here, well, this is jasper, a warm yellow-brown stone reflecting its dense atmosphere. That's 800 pounds of pressure, folks. And then Earth, it's sodalite, a deep blue stone representing the oceans and the vibrancies of our world. Each and every one of these is selected and finely crafted into this beautiful set that will make everybody who visits your house say, I wish I had the planets in the palm of my hand, but they don't. But you will by using the promo code MANDICE-ALONE. MANDICE-ALONE. Not dies, dice for 20% off. And if you use the link below, you'll also support the Man Alone channel. And hey, look, I know how you feel. If you're kind of like a home team supporter and you're like, I don't want these other planets. If you're a kind of person that's like, if it were up to me, nukes to all of them, I get it. Maybe you want the Earth spin dice, which perhaps, because I've never seen something so mesmerizing and beautiful, perhaps this should be my fortune dice. Will it? Well, let's check the rules. But also, let's check Man Dice Alone, the promo code for 20% off. Thank you, Dice Nest, for sponsoring the Man Alone channel. Okay. Hold on. Mercury rolled away. 1 second. All right. So, first things first, I put a fortune die right here. And this is sort of like like a mercy option here. You will advance this throughout the game slowly when certain things, usually unfortunate things happen, or you have unspent stuff, and you'll advance it. And then when it gets to 6, you can use it as a replacement for a lesser die. Okay, so this one starts at 1. And then we have our drives, and we'll look up what each of those are, as well as these challenges. Okay, and so together, each of these sort of columns right here, these 3 columns are threads. All right, and so this challenge, what we determine what it will, has this drive, this is our objective or motivation, has a series of challenges that we need to get through by spending dice equal to the card value. Okay, so this is a face card, so it's 10. And then once we get through all of these, that drive is resolved and becomes like an extra resource for us. Now, if that was a little bit hard to follow, it's probably a combination of the fact that I'm not great at explaining things like this, but also because there is an interesting, again, because of an adaptation of a video game to a tabletop game, the only way I can explain it is the game flows in and out of conforming to Citizen Sleeper in form and then conforming it to it in function, or to say parts of the game are made so that they mimic the experience of the plot, and certain parts of the game are made so that they mimic the experience of the mechanics of the game. And it switches in and out of this a lot. And so sometimes there are mechanics that you engage in that are a little bit difficult to conceptualize just because they don't make sense in one of those ways. Okay, so I'll say a little bit more to make that more concrete. But you have these threads, and your objective is to complete all of the challenges of this thread. All right, and then once you do that, you're able to flip a new drive and redeal its associated challenges. What will happen that will make a thread sort of special or more active is if you flip a character, because then that character is going to have a timer or clock die called a cycle dice, and you have to resolve the challenges under them to determine if you've connected with them or not, disconnected. If you've connected with them, I hate to kind of ruin the setup here, but let's say that I've connected with Eshi here, and I figure out how to connect with Eshi because I go to the lookup book here, and I look at Eshi's like entry here, and I know like what happens if I successfully connect with Eshi or not. There are rewards or risks, but either way, this person goes above this then and is in the upright position if I successfully connected with them, or the downright position or not. And then they remain part of this thread. You know, like if I connected with them, maybe they'll help in positive ways. If I disconnect, either they'll hinder that or they'll not be helpful. But either way, they're still part of that thread, of that story. Okay. And the goal of this really is to, um, well, keep going until you can't go anymore, but also to resolve these threads and connect in some way with four characters, or I should say, what's the word they use, which is quite, I find quite vague. Like lock up that character. Um, you're either going to connect or disconnect with four characters, and once you do, you will then use the results of those relationships that you have to concoct a sort of ending to the game. Okay. Um, So let's look at the lookup book here just to get an idea of what a thread will look like. And what we want to do is we want to use these and these, like what they mean in the lookup book, to figure out both what's going on here, what happens if we're successful, and what happens if we fail. So we'll do this thread first. This is the 6 of wands or engineers. And because it is horizontal, that means like we can use either side of it. Its orientation doesn't matter. So it says victory or hollow victory. And then we have this inverted queen. And I believe that we read like the one closest to us, self-doubt. But we'll also look in the lookup book at those entries because that will give us like more elaboration. And so we'll figure out what each of these threads mean, and this will start the process of our story. So let's take a look. So the first thing we would do, just to get an idea here, is we would look at the different suits, okay? And so because this is engineer or wands, this is going to have something to do with working with machines and physical tools. This right here is cups or intuition, and this is going to be approaching problems with awareness. And again, this one is engineer, so we know that'll be working with physical machines and tools. So we're going to decide what these drives mean based on what they say on them. And then we will sort of like the first step here could be a little bit difficult because it's kind of open-ended. So you could just be pretty vague with it, but we'll still look it up. And I also just want to say that I think something helpful here would be that in the lookup book, there is this quick reference and it gives our daily cycle. So every day we're going to roll energy dice, use those energy dice to sort of resolve these challenges that come up. And then once we resolve all the challenges in a stack, we fulfill a drive. We get to keep them as a resource. And then once we have no options left or we don't want to do anything else, we end a cycle, which means we go to sleep. And then based on the progress through the game, we'll re-roll however many energy dice we have and work through these challenges more and more. All right. Again, in terms of determining what we get for these, we look at like their size. So if we have a reward here that is a 10 of intuition, I don't know what that drive will be yet, but it should be a pretty good reward because a 10 is pretty high. All right. So that's the first thing. Before I roll the dice, I want to make sure I know what all these threads mean. So engineer, it's going to have something to do with like physical stuff. And it is a 7. And so we'll look up in the lookup book here to see if we can get any idea of what might be a suitable drive. All right, so it says here, these are some examples of drives. If you play the game even more than once, you want to start riffing off of these because use them as like guidance for the types of drives it'll be. And you want to incorporate as much as possible the meaning of the card. Victory, hollow victory. So I already have an idea here. this second drive here is the Eye's citizens struggle constantly against the entropy of their machines. What odd jobs from life support maintenance to computer repair do you undertake for the promise of payment? Now, when I think of hollow victory, um, and try to relate it to machine parts, I think of something that looks really good from the outside, but is rotting from the inside. Now, remember, this is early in the game, and so we don't necessarily want to start with something like, yeah, it's the bureaucracy of Erlin's Eye, it's rotting from the inside out. How about this? Victory, hollow victory, Erlin is very much regarded as like the savior of Erlin's Eye because it all went to chaos. Um, that's what you know at the beginning of the game. And this, I'd say, maybe there's a statue of Erlin's Eye, and it is at the center of some commerce hub. And this drive is somebody waves you over and says, do you know how to use a wrench? Sure. They say, look, you see this statue here, beautiful, isn't it? And you're like, yeah. And they say, well, the entire lighting rig for it is completely jacked. And my boss wants me to take care of it. But what my boss doesn't know is I have a second job doing circuitry, and they have some emergency right now. So I'm trying to find somebody that can cover for me here, and I'll give you whatever credits for the job, plus I'll throw in a little extra for covering for me last minute. So this drive would be like to repair that lighting rig. We don't worry about the challenge yet. Let's move to the next one. This is intuition. So, right, we know that this is going to be awareness, problem solving, and it's also a 10. So it'll be quite challenging, not impossible, right? We're just starting the game. And so we go to the intuition in the lookup book, and this, let's see, what does it say here? Fortune deprivation. Fortune and deprivation. Okay, so let's look at some of the drives. The Eye is rich with communities and social structures, from farming unions and workers collectives to sports clubs and gambling dens. Which of them are you trying to become a part of? So this is more of like a relationship one. Okay, deprivation, fortune. I mean, probably something that won't be able to be reused time and again, but fortune deprivation, I think, to me, I think of like gambling, lottery, chance, right? Some people would say that the lottery is like a tax on the poor. And so maybe this is, let's see, but it's saying, what am I trying to become a part of? Well, let's come back to that and look at the rewards over here. Because the first one had a pretty clear reward of like cryo, right? And maybe trust too. Maybe we'll get some trust from that person as well. They'll have other jobs for us. But this one here, maybe the reward can give us an idea of what the drive can be. You gain an advantage or favor within an institution. Which of the Eye's organizations favors you? Or you hear a story or rumor of great value, or you find a secret place of value. Okay, so it's originally I was thinking that this was something that I wanted to work against. Like I wouldn't want there to be an opportunistic casino that's taking advantage of people who just like earn their measly paychecks and throw it away. But this is something that I want to be a part of. And so inverted fortune and deprivation, maybe this is my attempt to do like some outreach for people that are just totally destitute in Erlin's Eye. And it would be the equivalent of like a soup kitchen or something like that, because if I can help those individuals out, maybe I will gain more of a reputation of that. And then when we hit a character in this thread, maybe that character can have a job at that outreach organization, or if it's an adversary, maybe they're coming in to try and close it down, right? And so, yeah, that'll be the drive for that, is to become a part of this organization. Now, one of the things that's a little unfortunate about this is, in a way, the entire tarot deck is an oracle. But for instance, I want to know a little bit more about this organization. It would help me to have something where I could look up a names table, an adjective table, stuff like that. Because if I just keep flipping these cards, I'm going to get confession and deceit. Yeah, welcome to the soup kitchen called Confession and Deceit. I think this game could really use a more general oracle, and I think that that is not in here. I think that was one of the things that I was kind of grumbling about the first time around. All right, this is kind of funny when I thought of a simple thing here and I then acronymed it. So I was like, okay, this place is called the Eye. What would a social support organization that wants to riff on that name, but how do you give rest to an eye? And then I was like, well, you can go to sleep, but that's not necessarily your eyes. You can blink. And I'm like, oh, maybe I can call it blink. And then I was like, well, that's sort of strange. Come to blink and we will give you respite or whatever. And then I said, well, actually, maybe people who are down on their luck, maybe we can call it lash. And I was like, well, that could mean many different things, but I said, let's go with it, lash. And then I said, well, what does this mean? And it stands for loving, aiding, loving and aiding. Let's see, someone who needs healing. Yeah, the S was different, but it was sort of a one of these very, we are just here to help all people. Okay, loving and aiding all those who suffer and need healing. And I was like, but maybe this organization has an ulterior motive, and maybe instead of loving and aiding those who are suffering and need healing, LASH can also mean locating all synthetic humans. And so I don't know if that means that they are an organization that helps sleepers. Is it letting all sleepers hide? Or is it locating all sleepers' heads? Right? But my point is, I don't have to use any of that. It could just be called Lash. And it's an organization where someone's like, hey, you look confused because I just woke up. Do you need some help? Do you need a blanket? And you're just not the type, I am just not the type of person to be doted on. And so I'm like, no, but it would be good to help some people. And so that's what that thread will be. And then finally, we have this, once again, it's an engineering thread. It's a 5. And it says retreat or conflict. And let's go back to the engineering drives, which are in both the lookup book and the appendix here. I'm dropping everything. All right, so I guess, is that, oh no, swords is the triangle. Okay. All right, so we have retreat, conflict. And docks dot the rim of the eye, each of them regularly visited by spacers and their aging ships, massive freighters, zippy cutters, and ponderous barges. Which are you paid to repair? All right, so conflict, retreat. There is a ship that comes in at the dock, and basically, it's like, I need to. This is a person who was engaged in some sort of outer rim firefight, and they needed to retreat, and their ship is messed up pretty bad, and so I need to help to repair the right wing. All right, just some examples here. So I wasn't planning on enumerating my grievances, but I think it'll be helpful for me to just talk about this because of the wider purpose of this video. This is another thing, is that I don't have any Oracle help other than these 2 words and 3 example drives and some rewards. I don't have a number Oracle to see how much cryo I get paid. I don't have a reaction Oracle from NPCs. I don't have a name Oracle. Like, there are characters in each of these decks, but they're not the only NPCs I'm going to meet. There's some guy at a front desk. There's some guy at the security guards walking down the hall. Hey, where are your papers? And also, I don't have a story, and I don't have stats. And that is like one of the things that right off the bat confused me about this game, is even in the video game, even though it is, very simple, you get like a 1 point stat in something, 0 in another, maybe you have 1 that's higher at 2, but that helps with each of these different things. Like and there's different types of starting characters that have +1 in this but -1 in this. For instance, I usually choose a character that's like has higher engineering or fighting and lower intelligence or intuition. But that would seem to make sense to do that here as well, where we're like, it's truly a tabletop game now, right? It's not like the video game that's just sort of crafted on that. And there's no character creation or stats. And so on top of those no stats, I know that I just woke up and I'm a sleeper, but that's it. Like, I don't, who woke me up? Where did I wake up? Where are my friends? What am I wearing? What sort of room am I in? And because of that, it's sort of there's a part early in the book that says, hey, if you played the video, it gives you a good background on like what Citizen Sleeper is, what Erland's Eye is, and it talks about you're a lone sleeper, you need to escape people who are looking for you, and then it says, great. It explains all that, 4 or 5 pages, and then this page right here says, Cycles of the Eye is set within that universe, and we've established the grounding. You have enough here for you to play. But if you've played the video game, you might have additional knowledge, or even the results of choices you made you want to integrate. If you haven't played the game, you may have new ideas. But it says make it your own. Make this your own and just play the game how you want to. But it's like, I really can't. Unless I am slowly crafting a story every time I flip one of these cards, which I think is the imagining of what this game is supposed to look like. But that is very difficult for somebody who, especially if you're not experienced with solo play, to flip that or something like this and be like, okay, I have to do a level 10 intuition action based on deprivation and fortune. That's a really tall order. And I think that again, in the dilemma of, do we replicate? One second. And I have no idea if this was the actual conversation, but I can only imagine they were like, do we replicate the game? Do we create a different way of doing this that replicates what the game is trying to do or what that represents? Like maybe it's that like when you work on the dock, you would normally in the game roll dice to see if you were able to overcome that. Well, because of the trappings of the game we made, we can't necessarily do that, but can we do something else so that it functionally does the same thing, right? Like leverages one thing in order to achieve something else. Do we put all of our chips into replicating the game, or do we try to make it our own thing, but at the same time, and have a fun play cycle, but at the same time, sort of drift from the core of what that game is, right? Because it's not called Citizen Sleeper, the game. It's called Cycles of the Eye. So it's a different game, right? And so I accept that that is not going to replicate those things exactly. But I think where I felt a little disappointed in this game was that I think it tried to do those two things, which is make a fun tabletop role playing game or replicate the computer game. Or three, I bet this was another limit, which was like, we want this to be something that people will love putting on their shelf, right? And so even the choice of these books, this strange half booklet, the inside of those sleeves would have been a perfect place to put like some oracles and stuff. They're probably dealing with multiple pressures of that nature at the same time. And I think I would have chosen, which, very big of me to say what I would have done. I didn't have to directly deal with all those pressures. But what I would have preferred, an outcome I would have preferred, let's say that, is that they just chose one of those things and went full into it. But instead, it feels like a lot of half measures in each of those directions, so that you sort of have a watered down version of the game it's based on and an incomplete version of the different game it was trying to make. And then also, because they're trying to meet some sort of minimalist aesthetic standard, it feels different than Citizen Sleeper feels because it feels more empty. Like, I just look at this card and I know I'm harping on this, but like, what is this? Like, where's the heart? 2 triangles? That's it, I don't know. So, anyways, I'll finish out here. All right. So then each day we're going to roll our energy dice, and we are going to, for any ones that are rolled, they are exhausted. So we're going to take them and put them over here. And so they are not in use anymore, except for the fact that that can only happen once a day. So this die, even though it was a 1, it remains a 1. And it can be used as a 1. And then this is a 6. And 6s can be used to just auto-complete anything. As a note, I definitely would not, for my first roll, if I don't get any 1s on my first roll, or at least I don't take away anything on my first roll. I don't like the idea of starting the game having lost 1 already, right? So I'd either re-roll that. 3, good. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to look at these challenges, and basically we have to just choose how to spend these dice to complete these. So this is a 10, and that is a challenge toward this right here, which is, we decided, was like the fixing of the light rig. All right. And so if I wanted to complete that, I would have to spend, let's say, 3, 4, 8, 11, and anything you spend over, it's lost. All right. I could do that. Or I can just get a jump on it and say, I'm just going to spend that 6 and clear it right away. And if you clear it, that dice is not exhausted. It's just done for the day. And then this becomes a resource. And it represents the reward that we have. All right. Now, the way that this is done here is, remember I said like cryo, we're going to get cryo for this. Well, you could track that, but really it's just this abstracted number here of, I have 10 resource, and I put that over here. That's my resource. I can use that resource to add like to one of these, or to count as like a dice of 10. Or every time I get 10 of a resource, I can trade 10 of it in to replenish all of my dice. And what that means is, every day I'm going to re-roll these dice, right? and I'm going to put them here, and I'm going to spend them and resolve these challenges. I got a new challenge, so I'm going to flip this. Oh, this is an ace, and ace counts for 10, so I've got to spend 10 here. I'll use a 6. That's cleared. I earn that resource. Okay, I put these over here. You cannot, by the way, you cannot, and I don't. This is another thing where I'm like, why? Why was this choice made? It's one of the best parts of Citizen Sleeper, slowly chipping away at these different things. You cannot spend resources beyond a day. So like if I have a 10 here, I can't go, I'll spend 2 today and then like tomorrow I'll do 8. And the reason is I'm not sure. I'm certain there was some sort of balancing consideration with that. But what ends up happening is like you have a bunch of heartbreaks every day where you're like, well, this thing is a 2, but I only have this 6, and I guess I'll spend 6 on a 2 difficulty thing, right? And each day that you re-roll and that you get a 1, that gets exhausted. So now I have 3 dice, right? And now and I can keep rolling these 1s each day. You can only lose up to 1 die a day. Now, when I'm down to 2 dice, it's going to be kind of hard to play because it's like I'm not going to be able to move forward on these things. Now, maybe that doesn't matter here because it's like this will take as long as it takes. But when you have a character in play, a character or adversary is going to have a cycle die. This is something, again, I do not like how this is done, but you basically roll, and this number, you have to complete all these challenges here based on the number of this card. So I think it'll be 4 cards. You have to complete these challenges, and every day that will decrease by 1. Okay. I think that each of these characters should have their own bespoke dice number, because it's like, say I get to my adversary. That's a big thing, right? Ethan's after me. I'm screwed. What do I roll? Oh, I rolled a 2. All right, well, Ethan's after me. I have 4 cards here to resolve. Well, I clearly can't do that. Well, 1, okay, 0. Ethan is gone. Ethan's not part of it anymore. And so it's like, no, Ethan should be part of this story. Technically, you don't throw Ethan away. You are like disconnected from Ethan for the remainder of the thread, and Ethan will continue to exert negative influence on what happens, etc. So in that way, I kind of get that choice, and in terms of their lasting effect. But I just don't like things that seem like I can't win them. I would say that that's a feels bad man moment in games when by no choice of my own, by no action of my own, something has arisen that is just not able to be succeeded at. That feels bad. Now, if this roll was based on some stat where it's like, even luck, some silly stat like that, and it's like, well, you roll the die and then you add your luck to it, and you could add it in either direction. Say, I don't know why you'd want to do that, but and then it's like, okay, I rolled a 3, I have three luck, now I have a clock of 6. But again, I'm just speculating. I think what happened sometimes is that there's this thought of, well, maybe we should do it this way. That would be cool. How would we do that? Oh, a person will just have to track that. And it's kind of like, we kind of want this game to be real, sleek and simple, and we don't want to add anything. We don't want to add, one like a clock. This would have been great to add, even a little cardboard one. But I don't know. I think that I'm certain that this was a lot. Well, I'll say this. I'm sure that it was a lot of smart people. I'm certain that one of them, Alfred Valley, who I've communicated with personally and has been an amazing, was an amazing ally and early in my whole thing here, getting me started and giving feedback and being encouraging. I consider to be one of the best solo game designers out there. I'm certain of that. And so all I'm saying is, like, I imagine that the shortfalls here, if they are even shortfalls, perhaps I'm alone in my feedback about this. Perhaps those shortfalls uh, are shortfalls or not, but I think they're likely caused by like difficulty in satisfying all of these different motivations simultaneously, which I can certainly appreciate. It's hard to make everyone happy. But yeah, those are the cycle die. There's also hacking, where once a day you can take one of your energy die and roll it. Um, you could take. See this. This is another thing I don't like. You could take an energy die. Say I rolled 2 1s. This is the only way you'll have a 1 in your pile, is if you roll 2 1s, you exhaust one of them, and then you have another 1. And I'm like, this sucks. I don't want to spend a 1 on anything. Once a day, you could take the value of one of your dice and try to hack it. And what that means is you take a dice pool and you roll. So if it's a 1 and you want to hack it, you can roll 5 dice and you're trying to get a 1. And we got a 1 here. All right. And what that means is that you can now consider that, I think, a 6. I think a 6. It would be counted as that this would turn into a 6. Whereas if you rolled and you got no 1s, then this would have been either exhausted or taken out of play. And for the cycle, I'm not certain, and I want to get to the next thing. So, but yeah, so that is something that did not make a lot of sense to me, in the opposite direction, where it was like, you can trade in, if your die is at a 1 and you want to trade it in, you can trade that in for 5. If it's a 2, you can trade it in for 4. In terms of the pool that's there to try and roll the same thing. 3, you get 3. 4, you get 2. 5, you get 1. So, I want to hack this 5. Let me roll. Well, that's insane. Well, usually, right? Not. Okay. So, dang, I didn't get it. I've spent that die. I'm sorry, but shouldn't it be the opposite? Like, I've spent a very good die on hacking. I should have a big dice pool to hack with. Am I wrong in that? I mean, you let me know. Maybe I'm not looking at it the right way. And again, I'm certain there's probably bigger balance considerations in this. But to me, why would I ever hack with a 5 when I have the lowest chance of getting anything? And why would I want to hack to get a 6? Okay. I mean, maybe if I had 1 dice left and I needed a 6, I would try to hack this with a 5 or whatever and try to match it. But other than that, it seems to me that investment scale is upside down. And I do feel like that sort of thing happens a lot in this game, where it's unclear, or it doesn't quite feel matched in terms of what I'm investing versus what I get. And because there's this abstraction and de-abstraction that's happening with resources, it gets real fuzzy. Okay, so say that for deprivation, I say that okay, I got a reward for this. I got a resource. It's worth 10. All right, and I put that in the pile over here, and then I want to I get down to 1 die, and I'm like, boy, I really gotta replenish my whole energy dice pool here. Well, I'll spend 10 here and get that dice pool back. Great. Yeah, because who knows what this resource pile is. So I'll spend 10 of that resource and get that back, because it stands for buying a serum. But what if this is the only card that we have, and we damn well know that this reward was a really good story? A 10 out of 10 story. And it's like, I've got to replenish my dice. In the game, you have to spend a large level of credits, or you have to do something very difficult. But here, I just spend 10 resource. The abstraction and de-abstraction of that, it breaks my what do you call it? you know, suspension of disbelief, right? It is no longer suspended. But yeah, I think that's enough to show you what this is like. You're trying to secure these relationships, and then at the end of the game, if you your the characters and adversaries, once you have 4 of these quote unquote locked up or nailed down or whatever it is, then you're going to look at those and you're going to take 3 of them, and you are going to decide, and maybe based on the outcome of them, it'll decide it is like if you have all 3 of them are upright, meaning that you got a good thing out of them, which I believe actually the adversary, Ethan, would not be one of those, but just pretend this is a character. If your 3 characters you have a relationship are upright, you get a good ending. If at least one of them is reversed, you get a complicated ending. And if they're all upside down, you get a bad ending. And then the ending of the game, I don't want to spoil it, but there's nothing to spoil because it's just like, we got a bad ending. How'd that go? And that's the final thing, is that I think that the incorporation of a journaling piece into this game, my grievances with journaling games aside, I think what happens mentally to a game designer, I know it happens to me. It's a temptation that's there to put something, to abstract something into the realm of journaling. It's very tempting because it basically allows for you to ease yourself with your anxieties that the players will not be able to put things together based on the instructions that you've given. Okay. And there is, I think 31, this section here that's called reflecting. Yep. And it's basically like, okay, yeah, this is like how you journal. Here's some questions you can ask. And so if I'm to say, well, I don't really get it, how does this, what if this is not the currency that would get the, and it's like, well, just take some time, journal and just think about it. And you'll be able to come up with that answer. I don't think that's out of laziness. I think it's out of a choice, because a journaling game is definitely fun and desirable for certain people that love journaling games. And so if you love journaling games, you're not so worried about all that stuff I just said. Who cares about how much hacking dice your die gets? But again, this is once more an example of where, because they couldn't decide what kind of game it was, it's all types of games. It's a resource management game. It's a resource risk and reward game. It's a journaling game. It's not a game. It's a story. It's also about character development. You gotta choose a thread. Pretty good, eh? You gotta choose a thread. All right. So now, last month, we get Spindlejack. And Spindlejack is also by Gareth Damian Martin. But this is a pamphlet game, and you can actually get this for free on itch.io. Just a thing. I did that with colored pencils, so you'll have to get a black and white one. But let's talk Spindlejack. All right. So in Spindlejack, you play, well, a Spindlejack. You are like a bike courier, but your bike is the sort of bike you'd expect in Citizen Sleeper. And you're basically moving all over I think it's it doesn't say what station it is, but it says, in the Starward Belt, Spindlejacks are notorious. Slicing across the station with their custom air bikes, they courier messages, packages, and anything else too sensitive for the station's protocol-haunted networks. Sharing the cavernous transit tunnels with hulking cargo haulers, they're also widely assumed to have some sort of death wish. But as one of their number, it's the rush, the competition, and the community that keeps you riding. Okay, so basically, in this game, your objective is to increase your rep as a Spindlejack. When you get to 20, you can retire, victor. You can't get to 30, that means you're a Spindlejack legend. In order to increase your rep, you are going to have to deliver packages to destinations, at least one a day, up to 3, in the allotted time. Each delivery will give successful delivery will give you 15 cryo plus 1 cryo for every minute that you get the package there under the time limit, or minus cryo if you, for that many number of minutes, you are over the time limit. The time limit is determined by rolling. You start here at the Stripline Express, and you roll a d6. Oops. And this is a 6. That is the distance then is whatever number of the destination it is plus 7. So 6 plus 7 would be 13. Now, I thought I was going to be really clever here by using thumbtacks, but I did it on one of these like healing self-cutting pads, and they do not like thumbtacks. So I'll just do what I will do when I was trying out the game, which is using my mothership thing. This does just fine. And so I set the time under the stress one here. So again, I rolled 6. 6 plus 7, 13. All right. And then we also have to watch our heat, all right, because starting at 1 and up to 5, our heat rises. If it hits 6, then we are stalled, and we have to roll a d6 until I think 4, 5, or 6 is hit, and then we can start again. But every time you fail one of those rolls, or I think every time you take a stall roll, you add +1 to your time. And so I was just using wounds for that. And instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I was 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then if it's over 4, that means I've stalled. Okay. Now, simple enough. You just have to decide between each of the intersections what you're going to do. You can keep pace, and that will just give you +2 time. All right. Well, I guess in the case of how I was doing it, we'll use this side over here to represent the time elapsed. So I'll go 1, 2 time, and no heat. You're just keeping pace. You're cruising. If you are overheated and you want to hang back, you add 3 time because you're moving slower, but you also get to -3 heat. So you cool down your air bike. If you want to push on, you only do +1 time, but you also add 1 heat. All right. Now, in an intersection is where it becomes an interesting little game of chess, because you go over this sheet here, and what you're going to do is you look at the intersection that you're entering and the one that you want to get to. So for me, I'm going to Pinnacle Pier. I think both B and... Here, let me zoom in so you can see this a little better. So I start here on the Stripline Express, all right? And so I need to go up to Pinnacle Pier, and I can go any way I want. If I go to the right or the left, I think to the right will be easier, because if I go to the left, it'll be 1, 2, 3, and if I go to the right, it'll be... No, it looks like it's the same both ways. But there is a consideration of like, I might make another delivery, and maybe I want to go, it doesn't matter. So I will, for this intersection, it doesn't matter. So I'm just going to emerge on C. So I'll say that I'm entering on A and leaving on C. So we go over the intersection map here, and we say that, we'll take a little gemstone to represent us. I am entering on A, here or here, and I need to make it over to the exit on C. And again, these are really, really busy intersections, and so you have to choose your move wisely. You can drift, you can grind, and you can skitch. Or you could just move, right, which is like 1 square in any direction. Or I can vent, which is like losing 1 heat. If I decide to do edge moves, then I gain heat, but I can potentially get there a little bit faster. So if I just go straightforward, I'm just like, okay, I'll move and then move again. That's my 2 turns. Or I could say I'll move and then I'll vent. Or I can stay in place, I guess, and say I'm just going to vent twice and lose 2 heat. Or I can move and then I can use one of these edge moves to go a little faster. Maybe I want to jump over a truck. Maybe I want to swing around it. Maybe I want to grab onto a truck and have it propel me. And that means we have to figure out what trucks we have here. All right. And so to do that, you have you're going to roll from A, B, and C. You're going to roll a D6 for each side. So 5, A5. All right. And you'll take dice and you'll fill with that number so that there are 3 dice in that direction, and that represents that hauler. And a hauler is like a big truck. So that's 1. And then for B, we're going to roll again here. 4. So B4. And this means that there is a hauler here. Sorry, have to. There we go. And then for C5. So C5. And this works pretty good, actually. I know it looks quite bunched, but if you roll a hauler and extend it out and it intersects with another hauler, then you have to like move your hauler up until it's in the clear, because it has to extend that distance. All right. So now what became a pretty routine journey here has some difficulty, because every day I am going to move. Oop, let me move that up. I am going to use my 2 moves, and then the haulers use their 2 moves. All right. And basically what they do is they just like move forward 1 like that. They'll all move forward. And if they move forward into you, that will increase your heat. And so you have to use a combination of these different moves here to try to move. You have to try to get from your entry point to your desired exit point in whatever way you can. And you can do it straightforward. But sometimes you're going to have to use moves to get around. Now, sometimes you may be like, screw this. This is way too congested right here. I am just going to go through exit B. That might be a choice you make. Sometimes it'll not matter at all. And sometimes it will like lead you down a path that it'll be a gamble, because you'll have to hit more intersections and just hope that you do a better job with those. All right. And so you're going to move it through. You're going to get to the other side. And then you are between intersections again. And so you're just going to choose. Do I just want to keep pace? Do I want to push it a little bit, etc.? You'll keep doing that intersections until you get to the place. You'll get your payout. And like I said, at your first payout, you can end the day, or you can keep going. All right. And when you keep going, you can then roll another destination. So I roll 1 for my starting point, which is 6. That's a really good roll because I'm already at 6. That means I lose 4 heat. Or if I was at a beginning point here of Bay 341, I just start there, I move there, and I only remove 2 heat, and then I say a destination can't be 4. The destination is to go back to Pinnacle Pier, but let's just try something different. So we'll say it's to go to Lou's Wet Dock. What I do then, once again, is I look at the number and add 7, and so 2 plus 7, I have 9, I guess minutes. It's just like units of time. And I have to make that delivery then, and I have to choose here. I'm going to go to this intersection, then I'm going to go here, and then I'll be at Lou's. So I have 2 intersections there. At the end of the day, you will have downtime, and during that downtime, you can eat a meal. You have to eat once a day, 5 cryo. Or you could blow off some steam, which is minus 10 cryo, but you're networking, making friends, doing cool bike tricks. And so that will give you plus 1 rep. And you can do that as much as your cryo allows you. You can also save up your cryo and upgrade different aspects of your bike. You can get dodge jets, flared vents, skitch hook, signal blast. For instance, dodge jets, when pushed by a hauler, you don't gain any heat. So when a hauler like moves into you, because there's sometimes a hauler will move and like hit you, and you'll move a line back and gain 1 heat. You would not gain that heat if you had dodge jets. And so you can see it's like a simple little game here, but I think it is, for me, it was illustrative of, or I guess it put into focus something bigger that I was feeling here, and that will be, for any who are still with me, the last 6 minutes here we'll talk about. Yeah, that's how weird. I could see why people hate that. It's like let's start this 1 hour 24-minute intro, and then in the last 6 minutes let's talk about what I actually want to talk about. So as I, think about this video, I think about its weird situation, which is that as of right now, as of the date of recording, July of 2025, there's, as far as I could tell, no way for you to get Cycles of the Eye. It's not even, as far as I can see, it's not available on PDF. If anybody can find a legally purchasable copy of Cycles of the Eye, please let me know. But the purpose of the video is not really to like review those. I already did a review video on that. Spindlejack is free. If you go to the link below on itch, you could just download the map and the pamphlet. It's print at home. And so the reason I wanted to go through those is because I think there's some lessons here if we identify the place between both of these, or perhaps the place with both of these on top of each other. Now, I'm not necessarily saying to like play Citizen Sleeper Cycles of the Eye with Spindlejack as the travel mechanism. I mean, maybe you could, but I think that it's a good example, of how something that is, it's a front and a back of a pamphlet, so 6 pages worth of text, can achieve a lot. It can achieve a lot, and sometimes it can achieve more than something that is cumulatively 108 pages. Now, that is in a respect. That is in the respect of mechanics of replicating the gameplay experience of Citizen Sleeper. But what is also confounding my analysis of this is that Spindlejack, Cycles of the Eye, and the video game Citizen Sleeper are all created in whole or in part by the same person. And so I think that is important for me to say as well, is that, Gareth Damian Martin has had no responsibility, or never, nobody has a responsibility to make any games, but he already created Citizen Sleeper. So it's like there's a choice there of, do I want to create that again? Do I want to try something different? And so I don't think that it's fair or accurate to say that Cycles of the Eye was a failure to put together a vision, because I don't know what that vision was. And clearly it was different than the original game. And if I really, really want the feeling of the original game, I can go ahead and play that, right? If I want to tweak something about the way that Cycles of the Eye does it, I can tweak that on my own. And so, again, I think there is a lesson here, just about game design. And this is purely enjoyment based. It's not about aesthetic. It's not about prestige. It's not about having a sort of consistent approach, readability, anything like that. it's about zeroing in on what a game does. And I made a previous video, either the last one or the one before, about the feeling that you're getting. And I will say that even though there's no responsibility to create a perfect tabletop version of Citizen Sleeper, I think there is likely a motivation to create a similar feeling of it, because that's why people would come to this game. I don't think there are many people who purchased Cycles of the Eye who had never played or seen a playthrough of Citizen Sleeper. It's not a game that people would have come to on their own. Maybe that's unfair because it is a very beautiful creation, but I think a lot of people were called to this game because of the amazing experience of Citizen Sleeper. And so the feeling of it was not negative. This is not a poor game. In fact, measured up against other games is quite good, but it just is like missing something. And what's interesting is that Spindlejack has that something. So this is a question of purely je ne sais quoi. It has action economy that feels urgent with movement and heat. You know, in Citizen Sleeper every day, you roll a limited number of dice, you assign them to actions, and you're balancing risk and reward and survival. In Spindlejack, you get 2 moves per turn, but risky moves cost heat. They get you there faster. They can also fail completely. So it's that sort of high risk, not high risk, high reward, high risk, low stability of Citizen Sleeper. And Citizen Sleeper is a metaphor for overexertion, corporate exposure. You can get ahead, but you might stall. Or you can, push it and get rep and become well known. But what does that really get you? You are well known in a job that is extremely risky. If anything, you might just be encouraging other people to enter into something very dangerous, exploitative, and unfair. All of that is expressed through, it can't be expressed through the story because the story is a paragraph. But you feel that way because of the experience that the mechanics put you through. There is a negotiation of resources here, but there's not necessarily a negotiation of pressure because the cycle of this, it's too abstract. It's too abstract. Why does this character have a cycle die of 3? I mean, you could say, well, because that's how many turns you have until they either are your friend or not. And it's like, but why? Why after 3 turns do they go away? Does that represent their patience? Does that represent that they have to go on a long journey? It's purely mechanical. And purely mechanical ingredients often emerge from the attempts of replicating something else. Because if there is, the game will sort of flow naturally. And in things I am more proud of having created, there's not that big question of like, how do I do this? How do I represent that? Because what I want to happen is very clear. And so the mechanic from that only takes a little bit of titration or wiggling to get into place. Whereas I feel like when I'm Frankensteining something, you can tell that as well because you're really trying to crack a case, And I see a lot of people trying to crack cases with their games. I'm no game design virtuoso. In fact, I think I kind of stink at it in some respects because I'm not patient. But I do know that people that I see struggling to crack a case were saying, how do I do this? How can I do this? Or I'm trying to make this, but I can't figure it out. I can't get it to do this thing that I want it to do. I've never seen somebody I've never seen somebody doing that has finished their product. I'm trying to think of an exception to that. I can't. Whenever I see somebody, very smart people, creative, talented, and they're like, I just can't figure out how to do this. Because even if they do figure it out, they spend so much time wiggling the other pieces that they've now created an entirely new landscape of the game that they have to refit everything. And this has happened to me. I mean, I have literally over 1,000 pages of games I've attempted to write. And I lose touch with them. I lose touch with what I'm trying to do. And the thing that makes me lose touch is when I go to the place of like cracking the case. If you can't tell how to do something, and and it takes you're sitting there and saying, I just can't get it. I've spent days and days and days. I don't think it's a good mechanic. Because if it takes that long for you, the game designer, to understand what the way to represent a mechanic should be, then what about the person who has to understand why you made that choice? Now, of course, there are exceptions to this, and there will probably be something in this to game designers who see this that causes umbrage. I understand. If you are successful at making games, go ahead and share the strategies. Share them in my comments, or make your own stuff. But and I'm not saying that people who do that are greedy. I'm just saying, if you don't think that my approach to this or my way of thinking about this is accurate, it's fine. I'm just trying to help those who feel stuck in things, because I think when you feel stuck in something, the final product is often something that feels Frankensteined. Like some of the pieces feel right and some of them don't. The time limit and the heat cap here, this is a ticking clock. And heat is this abstraction that it's a container that fits things that make sense, right? Yes, it's wear and tear, right? Yes, maybe it's weather, road conditions, whatever it is, it fits nicely in that container. I don't have a like mini aneurysm when I'm going from abstraction to de-abstraction on that. It makes sense to me. And yes, it goes, yeah, for what this game is, heat, that works, that's fine. But resources, that's too big. It's too big. And it's too specific in some places and too non-specific in others. Now, Spindlejack, is this a game you can play a 2-year campaign of? I don't think I would like to meet the person who's like, I'm on year 2 of my Spindlejack run. No, at a certain point, it is a slightly more complex game of a board game, but which has its own replayability and stuff like that. But it's a part of the world. They've whittled this world down to a more manageable size, and in doing that, have found the heart of what Citizen Sleeper is. And I encourage you, perhaps, if I'm going to give any advice, not as somebody who is a veteran game designer, but as somebody who wants to see your game in the world. This is not even about game design. It's about the creation of anything, putting anything into the world. Is that I think you should whittle it down to a more manageable size. Pick a smaller piece of that world. And if you can figure that out by some magic, I'm quite sure of this, that this, based on what I believe, you will see the bigger picture. But first, you have to see what happens right here in this intersection, and then you'll see what happens in the whole star system. I don't know this from game design. I know this just from creation, from being the person who is the biggest fan of you taking your ideas and making them real. Anyways, I always have this problem where I gotta scroll and find the thing. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. What's wrong with you? It's summer. Oh, I've got this canker sore. It's like all that exists to me is this canker sore.